Welcome back to Business on City News 570, powered by Cowan Insurance. And this week, again, we're lucky to have Karen Williamson. She's a benefits consultant with a national benefits team at Cowan Insurance Group. And Gregory, last week, Karen and you and I spoke a little bit about diversity and how to use your benefits program to make sure it's inclusive and respects all the different types of families and people that work inside your operation. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the other part we want to talk today is more that equity side and some specific examples of how to demonstrate your employee benefits program is reflective and has an equity to it for all of your employees.
Yeah, I think last week, Karen, by the way, it's great to have you on again. Thanks very much. I think last week we talked about it was kind of revealing, I'm quite sure it certainly was to myself and probably to a lot of our listeners that, maybe it's time we sit down with our employees and get to know them a little bit better, because we got to know some of those things that we don't necessarily discuss always at the workplace, but we want to make sure our employees all feel included. Now it's about really also this week, we're going to talk about making sure there's equity within that distribution of benefits to our employees. So let's talk about that equity part of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Ian. Happy to be back with you again this week and continue this discussion with more of a focus on equity this week. So when we talk about building equity into your benefit program, we're talking about equal access. And so access to care should be the same. Maybe not, it doesn't look exactly the same, but nobody is limited with access to care compared to their colleagues. And so there's a few kind of key things. One big thing that is in the industry right now that a lot of people are talking about, there's kind of a big movement on, is in regards to this category of drugs that have traditionally been called lifestyle drugs. And I know there's a lot of us that would actually like to move away from that term completely, because historically this kind of category of drugs refers to drugs that would treat obesity, infertility, smoking cessation, and a lot of those things are not lifestyle choices. I may not be a doctor, but I'm pretty sure there's studies out there that show that people have a genetic predisposition to obesity. They have genetic predispositions to diabetes. And certainly infertility is not a choice. So it's kind of brings up a lot of questions about why does this category exist in the first place, and how do we make that choice between, allowing for a plan to cover treatments for certain chronic conditions and not others. Mm-hmm. And this is really at the crux of providing equal access into a benefit program.
Are those things that you, as the benefit sponsor, which is the employer, you can say we want to have a more expansive view, or more, that it has more equity to it, that includes more groups?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a choice whether you want to include that coverage or not. Sometimes companies have not been including it as kind of a form of cost containment, right? We know that benefit programs aren't free and budgets matter as well. And so it's been a way of kind of introducing cost containment into a program. But there are other ways to manage your costs. You can include plan maximums. There's other ways. And so really if this is something you want to make sure that you have into your program, but you're not sure where the budget comes from, that's where an advisor is really going to be able to help you out. You might be able to shift investment from somewhere else in the program, or even shift it from elsewhere in your total compensation. Mm-hmm. We have to remember that benefits are a piece of your total compensation. And so it's kind of looking at all those different pieces. I know it's all very complex, which is part of the reason why I love it. But often there's room. It just might be kind of moving things around, especially if equity is one of your primary focuses.
I think you really, the last couple of weeks, Karen, you really highlighted some important things for employers to kind of sit back and look at and make sure they're addressing. This is, today's employees are really looking for diversity, equity, and inclusion in the entire framework of their workplace. And I think these are really important for employers to really understand. And I know it's really complex. So my advice would be to call Karen Williamson at Cowan to get some more clarity around that, but or call your benefits provider consultant and get some of that wise and sage advice. So thanks very much, Karen, for joining us again this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg. Always a pleasure.
And that's Karen Williamson. She's a benefit consultant with Cowan Insurance Group.